concussion coming off that thing standing right here. Alright, this time we got the 357 Magnum. Man, if there's one thing that I love when it comes to firearms, it's innovation. There it is, the Chiappa Rhino. This is the 5-inch version, or the 50DS in 357 Magnum. It's different. I think it's kind of cool looking in a very ugly way. Some people really like it a lot. It's kind of got a little bit of a sci-fi look going on to it. I'm sure you've seen it in movies. Let's go ahead and see how she shoots. Alright, this time we're going to go ahead and hit it up with the 357. Alright, so this is what I'm shooting today. Great thing about getting the Rhino and the 357 is you can shoot both, yes, the 357 mag and also the 38 Special. You have a little bit of versatility there, which I really appreciate in a gun. One thing that's become a little bit more popular with revolvers is shooting with that thumbs forward grip. That's usually fine and dandy when you're shooting the lower pressure cartridges. Even up to the 357 Magnum, it's usually not a problem with most revolvers. You'll end up with some carbon on your thumb, you'll be black just because of that cylinder gap right here. But the Chiappa Rhino is a completely different story. Because the Chiappa Rhino fires at the bottom of the cylinder, right there, your forcing cone, where all those massive pressures are felt, is right where your thumb lies. And that can be a serious problem if you're running something even as low as the 357 Magnum. While shooting the Chiappa and most revolvers, as a general rule, I like to wrap my thumbs just to make sure that they're completely out of the way. I have read several accounts of people cutting their thumbs up pretty good while shooting the Chiappa Rhino, so it's something to be conscious about. Make sure you're not putting yourself in any danger. That trigger, man, I cannot get used to that. It's empty. No one's over there. Wide open. So you pull the trigger and let it back. It clicks, but that's not the reset, and you'll notice it sticks. You have to come another click out, and then it breaks. Let me see if you can see that better over here. Let's check this out. Pull the trigger. Hear that click? Nope. There it is. The second click is the reset. I don't like that. That kind of bothers me. Other than that, wow. Here's the cylinder released right here. A little unorthodox, but it seems to work fine. Just give it a little pop with your index finger on the opposite side, and it comes right free. And then the shells come right out, no problem. It works fine. No major complaints with that. Here's a funky little hiccup I had while emptying the cylinder. As you can see, the star got in front of the casing there. Not the end of the world, but kind of funny. That was with 38 Special. Whenever I go double action, I'm waiting for that reset of the trigger, and I have trouble just letting it go all the way out, so I gotta focus on letting it release all the way. I think I can get used to it. Still, not my favorite feature. Let's switch plates side to side and see how it does with the 357. It's that trigger reset, man. All right, let's do a little bit with 38 Special. See how she does. All right, let's do another try with 357. I just really got to make sure I release that trigger finger all the way out. If I short it at all and try to pull off of the first reset, man, it's really messing with me. As soon as I feel that, as soon as I feel that reset, I want to pull it again. See, man, I gotta really concentrate to let my finger just let it go out all the way. I really try not to slap my trigger, and you have a tendency to do that when you're just letting it fly forward all the way. And I've just become accustomed to pulling again right on that reset, and you can't do that as easily on this gun until you really get used to it. You got to hear that double click quickly, and once you practice enough. Yeah, you do start to get used to it a little bit. This is my first day out with it, and I've already found that I am much improved. It's a lot easier for me. The first couple times I shot it, man, I wanted to pull the trigger on the reset and I'd get stuck. I'm like, what's going on with the gun? The very first time I shot it, I thought it had malfunctioned. I searched around to see if others were experiencing that same problem, and there were other reports, although it seems that mine was more pronounced, and you may be lucky and not have an issue with it whatsoever, or maybe you just don't notice it with the way you shoot. The grips overall are pretty nice for my hands because they're a little bit bigger. I wouldn't mind to see maybe just another 1/4 inch of length, just because I find that I'm, as you can see right there, my palm is riding a little bit below even when I'm, you know, all the way up on the top. It's generally comfortable, nothing special about it. I like the texturing on the sides. It definitely aids in maintaining that solid grip while you're shooting. Other than that, the angle isn't my favorite. Kind of similar to a Glock. I find that I'm kind of cranking my wrist down a little bit to get that level sight picture. A lot of you are used to Glocks and like that grip angle. For me, it's not my favorite. I'd switch it out if I could. There aren't a lot of options right now. You can get their rubber grips, and they've got a couple different wood grips in different colors. But for right now, you're kind of stuck with this unless you really want to mod it out on your own. The sights are decent. You have fully adjustable rear sights for windage and elevation. It's blacked out on this particular model. And then the front sight, I also have a blacked out front sight, just a steel front sight. It's easy to remove with 2 roll pins right there, and you can throw in their fiber optics. They also make fiber optic sights for the back. They're good sights overall for a Revolver. I have no qualms about them whatsoever. They seem to get the job done. Now, the Chiappa Rhino does come with different lengths of barrel. This is the 5-inch. Obviously, as you can see, it's the 50 DS right there. You can get it in the 2, the 4, the 5, and all the way out to the 6. The 2 does not have the lower Picatinny rail. The 4 and the 5 does, as well as the 6, but the 6 also offers the Picatinny rail on top if you wanted to mount some kind of a red dot, some kind of an optic. Overall, the weight isn't too bad at all. As you can see, they've milled out some nice holes there to reduce the weight. The most critical components are made out of steel, but other than that, it's an alloy, aluminum, I believe, and that really helps to make it manageable. I wouldn't necessarily go to this for a daily carry, but you could, and people do it with heavier guns than this. Go and test the accuracy of the Rhino out a little bit, see how she does. So yeah, I didn't mess with the sights on this at all, and you know, it's stretching out a little bit. I mean, it's not too far. It's about 30 yards or so, but for a little Revolver, it gets the job done, no doubt. So the hammer, as you can see, it's really just a cocker. As you can see, it pulls it into single action. There's that great single action break. This just kind of sits in place after you cock it and does nothing after that. You can see there's this little plunger right here that pops up. There it is when it's cocked. By the way, it is kind of heavy. It's not a big deal for, I mean, when I'm pulling it with my thumbs, it's not hard. If you're smaller or have any issues with your hands, that heavy hammer could be an issue. So it truly is a faux hammer. As you can see in double action here, it just sits there, it doesn't move at all. Now the hammer can also be used as a decocker, as you can see right here. Pull the trigger, hold the hammer back, and slowly release. There you go. So I suppose there is one more function for that faux hammer. Alright, let's go ahead and let you see a recoil comparison between the 38 Special and 357. So yeah, that's 38 Special. Let's give you a look at the 357 mag. Alright, I figured I'd give you one more demonstration of how the Chiappa Rhino really helps to mitigate that muzzle flip. Here we go. So yeah, you can shoot quick with it. Again, I got hung up one time on that reset. I didn't quite let it out all the way, had to get it out there. I'm getting better with it, getting faster, more proficient. But at the same time, I'm not a real fan of the trigger reset on this. It's got a nice trigger, it's smooth, it's heavy in the double action, but it's smooth in the single action, man. It's butter, it's super light, very crisp. Couldn't really ask for more for that single action trigger. And overall the double action, even though it is a little heavy, I really do like it because it is butter smooth. And just the mechanics of the gun, the way it's designed, for whatever reason, at least for me, I find it very easy to remain on target. There's very little shift of that front side at all. Now the Chiappa Rhino is really known for its recoil management. Don't be mistaken, there's just as much recoil on this as there is on any other 357 revolver. The difference is you're not getting all this muzzle flip up and back. Rather, it's all coming straight back into your hand and wrist into a straight line. Because of that low bore axis. I did notice that after about 100 rounds, I started feeling a little bit of pain right here in my palm, above my thumb. That's something I wouldn't normally notice with a 357. That rocking motion actually helps to negate some of that felt recoil. But again, that muzzle flip is what we're trying to get rid of, and it does that beautifully. You don't have to fight the barrel from coming up. You don't have to over muscle the gun. And that again aids with accuracy when it comes to fast follow-up shots on target. Overall, I've been pleasantly surprised with the Chiappa Rhino. It's a very unique little revolver, very innovative as I mentioned, and I really like that about it. And I love it whenever a firearm helps to further the industry, when it helps us to move forward and find better, newer things. And this is one big step for sure. And for that reason, I feel like the Rhino could deserve a spot in your arsenal if it's something that you've been interested in. Now, if you really enjoy revolvers and you want to shoot quick, you want to keep that front sight right on target, the Rhino might just be your best option. It is a little bit quirky, it's different, it's unique, but that's not a bad thing in my book. Now, I wouldn't have a problem using the Rhino in a self-defense scenario. I don't feel too apprehensive about it going bang every time. The only issue I have is that reset on the trigger. And that's why it wouldn't be my first option, although a revolver wouldn't necessarily be my first choice when it comes to self-defense anyway. I do personally feel like there are better options out there in the semi-auto realm. If I had to give the Rhino a score out of 10 for its purposes, I'm going to go with an 8. It really does help to basically negate that muzzle flip, and that's what it was designed to do, and it does that perfectly. It also seems to be a very reliable firearm, as you'd expect with a revolver. It gets the job done, I'm not too worried there. And ergonomically, it does a pretty decent job. There's a couple quirks, a couple funny things about it, but you get used to that very quickly. Again, I wouldn't mind a little extra length on that grip. And that reset on the trigger is the only thing that really knocks it for me. Anytime a company tries to push the envelope, when they bring new things to market, and they really try to get us out of that box, I really appreciate it. And for that reason, Chiappa has earned a lot of points in my book. Chiappa wasn't my favorite brand, it probably still isn't, but it's earned some respect, and I'll definitely consider it in the future because of what it's done here with the Rhino. Alright, got one round left. go ahead and get rid of it. How about if I tear down on the screw? Why not, right? There it is. Just dumped my last paycheck into a Rhino.